Pete Crow Armstrong had a breakout season in 2025. Should we be expecting more of the same in 2026? And do I expect Kyle Tucker to return to the Cubs? We're talking those names and more as we review the Cubs on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, riding solo today, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things, once again, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us as well. And all right, guys. Actually, real quick, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And all right, guys. We are talking about those Cubbies today, a little bit of a review from 2025, a little bit of preview for 2026, and all, of course, from a fantasy baseball standpoint. Kyle Tucker, great little first season with the Cubs. Does he stay there, though? Is a free. I mentioned Pete Crow Armstrong had a breakout season. We're going to be breaking him down and what to expect in 2026. Then we got some usual suspects. We got Nico Horner, Michael Busch, Matt Shaw. Actually, Matt Shaw is going to be an interesting one. Had some ups and downs. What do we think about him going into 2026? And then, Cade Horton, almost won Rookie of the Year, came a couple of votes short. Matthew Boyd, and then we are talking about the Cubs' number one prospect that has yet to debut in Jaxson Wiggins. So the routine around here, we're going to do those bats first, arms, and then we're going to talk about their top prospect. But there's no better place to start other than with Kyle Tucker. Love me some Kyle Tucker, man. I just always, the big thing with Tucker, and I've always said it is, I always feel like there's just one category or 1.5 categories or sometimes even two that hold him short from being like a top 3, top 5 player in all of fantasy baseball. Sometimes it's the games played. A couple of years where Tucker hasn't been healthy. This past season, though, still a strong year from Tucker, 136 games played, 591 runs, 25 doubles, 4 triples, 22 homers, 73 RBIs, 25 steals, and he hit 266. Tucker was a little bit banged up, as he only played 136 games, limited the RBIs, kind of limited the power and the steals a little bit. Also the 266 batting average, the lowest over the past 3 seasons. The walks, I didn't even mention the walks to strikeouts are really good with 87 walks to 88 strikeouts, but Tucker's usually pretty good with the plate discipline. He's actually gotten a lot better, particularly over the last 3 years. I kind of want to see what happens, with Tucker. Obviously, the landing spot is going to mean a lot. Tucker did have a great first showing with the Cubs here as a 28-year-old. It's going to be weird for me. I still think Tucker is, I do want to check last year's ADP. I believe he was going in the first round. I still want to say he's a first round worthy pick. But for me, I want the Julios over him going into 2026. Guys like that. Kyle Tucker was the number 8 pick overall going into 2025. For me, I think he moves down. I think he's closer to, that turn, at the 11 through 14 range, I think is where he's going to wind up for me. Like I said, I'm probably going to be moving, Julio Rodriguez over him. I think him and Jackson Chourio is a conversation. I think if you're one of the starting pitcher, guys, you want to take Skeens or Skubal over him. That's getting a little bit aggressive. I don't know if I'm going to be doing that, but hey, if that's your thing, go ahead. And it's landing spot too. If Tucker, winds up, back with the Cubs or with a really good team, I think that keeps the value high. If he goes to a lesser team, obviously that's going to bring the value down. But let's not forget, in 2024, Tucker dealt with a lot of injury, only played 78 games. Last year, we talked about 136 games played. So, and then earlier in Tucker's career, he dealt with injury as well. So, not the pillar of health. I think he can bounce back and have a 100 season with 30 bombs, 25 steals, and a 280 batting average. I think that's definitely in the cards, but it's not something that I'm particularly going to be expecting from Kyle Tucker. Still think he's going to be absolutely great, though. Obviously, first, if I'm calling for him to be a first-round pick, he's still going to be really, really good. It's just going to be, like I said, a matter of landing spot, and if he can, live up to the hype. All the underlying stuff looks really good. Wish the hard hit rate and the average exit velocity was a little bit higher, but the X batting average sits at 274. X batting average is the underlying stat for batting average, kind of projects where it, supposed to be rather than where it is. Doesn't really chase much. We talked about the improvement in the walk to strikeout ratio. So Tucker is obviously still a points league darling, still probably closer to a mid first round pick than a late in points leagues. But I think in your categories leagues, which is with the kinds of fantasy baseball leagues I specialize in, I'm pushing Tucker closer to the end of the first round, beginning of the second round in your standard 12-man league for 2026. For all of the aforementioned reasons, and plus he's getting a year older. He's gonna be 29 years old. So we'll see. We'll see where the cards fall for Kyle Tucker. Sooner than later. Let's move on to Pete. I'll say this: if you guys listen to Matt, who was a big PCA guy, and he eventually backed off his stance, but I still got to give it to Matt. He was really hyping up Pete Crow Armstrong in the offseason. You did all right because he definitely gave you that ROP, that return on pick. Crow Armstrong had 157 games played in 2025. He was an all-star, 23 years old, 591 at-bats, 91 runs, 37 doubles, 4 triples, 31 homers, 95 RBIs, 35 steals. He did have only 29 walks, 255 strikeouts, and a 247 batting average, but those are still some pretty elite numbers for PCA. Very Jazz Chisholmish, if you know what I'm saying there. Definitely, the power speed combo, but with that lack of batting average, especially down the stretch, kind of did hurt you from PCA. But I still think he's going to be really, really good. I got to check my rankings, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be inside of my top 12 outfielders for sure. I think top 12 is a safe number there for PCA. I am going to actually, if you guys bear with me, I'll pull up my rankings here, my way too early 2026 rankings, and I'll kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown. I will say this, though. The underlying stuff for Pete Crow Armstrong necessarily isn't buying him being, as good next year. I will say this. I have Roman Anthony and Pete Crow Armstrong right next to each other going into 2026. And actually, as I kind of look at my rankings here, I see a couple guys that are going to be arguable with PCA around this point. It's going to be really a matter of, is there room for him to grow in the batting average department? That was always my one gripe with PCA. I never doubted the speed. The power I doubted a little bit. The speed's elite. He's in the 96th percentile sprint speed. He could definitely go out there and steal some bases. I wouldn't even be shocked if PCA has a 50 steal season in him. The 31 bombs is a lot. Wouldn't be shocked once again if he's closer to a 25 bomb guy next year. Maybe it's closer to a 25, 26 home run profile. Maybe you get closer to the 40 steals. And then with that being said, right, with PCA, if he could figure it out in the batting average department, because the expected batting average is right where he's at with the 247. So if he can get up to a 260 mark, you're talking about a guy who's definitely a top 12 outfielder, just versus where I could see, him 15, 16, 17 now. I was looking at some of the names I have below him are arguable. Like Roman Anthony, I think that's a great question. I think that Jackson Merrill versus Pete Crow Armstrong is a great question as well. A couple young stud outfielders that, let's see how they fare, going in a couple years into their careers. But, PCA for me, though, man, I still like what he does. If you could make up for the bad batting average, I think the power, like I said, is definitely 25 plus homers. The speed, I think, is as many bases as the Cubs want to let him steal, and he will. Pete will do it. So with PCA, definitely like him in 2026. I want to say as like a high to mid end outfielder number 2. But before we move on and we talk about the likes of Nico Horner, Michael Busch, then we move into some arms like Cade Horton, and who is Jaxson Wiggins, the Cubs' number 1 prospect that is yet to debut. We will talk about those names and more coming up next. And all right, guys, before we move on and keep this show rocking and rolling, I need to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride, the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And before I let you guys run, I will give you a quick bet. I'm a Lakers fan, but guys, I don't know, man. The Spurs look really good. I'll take Wembanyama on his rebounds and blocks. I'll take Castle for his assist. De'Aaron Fox is back. I'll take him on his points and 3-pointers as well. So once again, you're going to do all of that over at FanDuel.com. And all right, guys, let's just jump back into it, right? I teased it. Let's do it. Let's talk about Nico Horner. I feel like at the second base position, Nico Horner is just one of those guys that you're not going to be mad you took him, but he's not really ever going to light where, he gets you a lot of hits and runs. But for the most part, with Horner, it's just steady production throughout the season. And let's talk about it. 156 games played last season for Nico Horner, 599 at-bats, 89 runs, 29 doubles, 4 triples, 7 bombs, 61 RBIs, 29 steals, 297 batting average. Over the last 3 years, Horner has been, even if you want to go, we can reach and say the last 4. We can do that, right? So I'm going to just do the average Nico Horner season over the last 4. All right, so we're talking about per season. It averages out to 148 games played per season, 83 runs, 28 doubles, 8 homers, 58 RBIs, 30 steals, and a 284 batting average. That's fine. That's just fine at the second base position. I'll take it all day long. I wish he could tap back in close to those 43 steals that he did in 2023, but you're not mad at 30 steals with a 290 batting average and, 90 runs, and even 61 RBIs is not bad for, somebody who plays second base and, is usually batting leadoff. I'll take that from Nico Horner. I'll see where I slotted him in at my way too early second base rankings. Definitely a top 10 guy. Right at 9. I have Nico Horner at 9. I think that feels safe. If you miss out on the top guys, I'm not mad with Nico Horner being your fallback option. Once again, let's keep rocking and rolling though. We're moving today. We're moving. Let's talk about Michael Busch. Michael Busch, interesting year. I feel like if I remember correctly, he started the season off really, really hot. A lot of guys were taking their victory laps. I wasn't a huge Michael Busch guy. Definitely somebody I definitely took in deeper leagues and stuff like that. But everyone's doing their victory laps, and he got into a little bit of a lull and picked it back up and finished really, really strong. So the 27-year-old last year, Michael Busch, He played in 155 games, 524 at bats, 78 runs, 25 doubles, 5 triples, 34 bomb skis, 90 RBIs, 4 steals, 56 walks to 139 strikeouts, and a 261 batting average. Really, really like the numbers for Michael Busch. And I think it's fairly repeatable. The thing with Busch is that he was originally with the Dodgers, and the Dodgers just never really had the spot for him to, flourish. So, after getting a full year under his belt in 2024, a little bit of growing pains Busch had, broke out in a good way in 2025. And he's definitely somebody that I'm going to want to grab shares of going into my internet would stop giving me such a hard time. Busch is definitely somebody that I'm going to want to grab shares of going into, the 2026 season. ADP obviously always plays a part because I think a lot of, fantasy baseball analysts are going to see what I see. The underlying stuff looks good for a Michael Busch and all of that stuff. So we'll kind of see where that pans out. And I even do want to speak to some of the underlying stuff. I think there's some room for improvement in the batting average department. The expected batting average is a 266 mark. He was at, what did I say? He was at 261 on the season. The stuff of power, really, really legitimate. Definitely could be that 30-plus homer kind of guy again. So Michael Busch is just somebody that, depending once again on ADP, I'll kind of check where I have him, ranked up. I believe he has, third base, at least first and third on Yahoo. I have Michael Busch as the 10th first baseman going into 2026. I think that is a fair mark for him. Let's see. I don't know if he's going to retain that third base eligibility. I don't have him ranked here at third, so I think it's only going to be first for Michael Busch going into 2026. So yeah, definitely top 10. Definitely think he could. I don't want to say he could be that much crazy better than this because 34 homers, 90 RBIs, 261 batting average is really pretty elite as it is. But it's repeatable, man. It's definitely repeatable for, guys going to be 28 years old, still in the prime of his career. I would not shy away from drafting Michael Busch in 2026. Let's keep pushing here and let's do Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw, interesting, player, was a very high-end prospect for the Cubs, little as a couple of years ago. Got his first, chance to really make some noise in the bigs this year. Had ups and downs, as I said, ebbs and flows. Overall, was 126 games played for the young Matt Shaw. 393 at-bats, 57 runs, 21 doubles, 3 triples, 13 homers, 44 RBIs, 17 steals, 38 walks to 94 strikeouts, and he hit 226. Now Shaw, plays third. He plays a little bit all over the place, right? And once again, the eligibility on Yahoo is going to come down to did he play at least or start at least 5 games at the position, or did he, play 10 games at the position, right? So it's 5 starts or 10 games played overall on Yahoo, which is where Matt and I play most of our fantasy baseball. And Shaw, let's talk about how good of a prospect he was. Had some really good seasons in the minors. Hit 357, was only over 38 games in 2023, but also had 8 homers and 15 steals. In 2024, it was 121 games played in the minors, 443 at-bats, 78 runs, 21 bombs, 31 steals, 284 batting average. So, the speed's legit. He's got some pop. The batting average potentially could be plus. Always was pretty decent with, being able to take a walk, and not striking out a crazy amount. I think that's something Shaw could work on, coming into 2026, being his second year in the bigs. Like I said, definitely could be something that Shaw could take a step forward with. Don't think we're really going to have to pay much for Shaw. I think he's going to be like one of those free 99 kind of guys. So, you can definitely throw your dart in his direction towards the end of drafts in, 2026. And I'm not really going to be mad at you at all. And before we move on and we talk about, we'll do some Ian Happ. We'll get into the arms. We'll do Cade Horton. We'll do Matthew Boyd. There might even be time for Jamison Tyon, but we're definitely going to talk about who Jaxson Wiggins, the Cubs' #1 prospect that has yet to debut, is. And all right, guys, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Game Time. And listen, the NFL season is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But actually getting those tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why me personally, I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fan and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included, so the set price is the price that you'll pay. The app is made for, makes it super simple, so you're going to see the exact view that you'll be sitting in before you buy. Fees are included up front, so you're going to know your total with no surprise fees when you check out. And guys, I was just on the app not too long ago, and there's some really great deals on there. I'm talking about your favorite NFL teams. You get to go to those games for as low as $100. And then I love the zone deals too. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that promo code is going to be LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. And all right, guys, let's keep it going. We'll do a little bit of Ian Happ talk here. Ian Happ, is in the way I said I talked about Nico Horner earlier. Ian Happ is just one of those guys who's been around a while. At this point in his career, he's kind of given us a lot of similar seasons over the past 3 or 4 years. I'll give you the specifics of it here in a second. So pretty much I want to say since 2021, Ian Happ's been the same kind of guy, especially when you look at like the last 3 years in particular, right? 21 to 21s, 80 to 86 RBIs, did only chipped in 6 steals this year, but did have 13 and 14 the previous 2 before that. And then the batting average is anywhere between 243 to 248. Top 40, top 50 outfielder Ian Happ is. He's nice little low-end outfielder 3 or a utility bat, at best. You're going to have to find your batting average in other spots. You're going to have to get, your like major steals guys in other spots. But Happ's going to chip in power. He's going to be consistent, giving you runs and RBIs on a decent basis throughout the year. And that's just that. He's what I like to call basically like a stabilizer, right? You throw him out there, and he kind of just gives you solid production. Don't really have to worry about anything too much with an Ian Happ. It just really becomes a set it and forget it kind of thing with a guy like Happ. So let's keep things pushing. We will move forward. Let's talk about Cade Horton, man. He was really, really good. Was very impressed with him in his rookie season. As I mentioned, Rookie of the Year voting came out today. And I believe, if I remember correct, Cade Horton only lost by a few votes to Drake Baldwin. But great showing in his rookie year from Cade Horton. 22 starts, sorry about that. 2.67 ERA, 11 wins, only 4 losses, 118 innings pitched, 97 strikeouts. He had a 1.08 WHIP, a 3.58 FIP, which is fielding and independent pitching, ERA indicator. Kind of tells you where it is. So, Cade Horton might wind up getting up. Maybe it's a low 3s ERA, even if it's a mid 3s ERAs. Still going to be a good pitcher. I don't know if Horton ever winds up becoming like a major strikeout, specialist or anything like that. He lived over K per nine a little bit in college, and excuse me, ended his his little showing in the minors in 2025. But otherwise, it's never been like a major, part of his game. But I still think Horton's going to be useful. I do foresee some fantasy baseball players and maybe even some experts getting a little bit antsy with a guy like this. You see the great ERA. You see maybe you think he has the potential to get over that K per nine. You see the really good whip. I think it's going to be like, hey, you look at some of the ERA indicators. It's a mid-threes ERA. If he doesn't get to that K per nine and he takes a little bit of a step back in whip, and even if you look back at, Cade Horton's, time in the minors, go back to 2024, it was a 1.25 whip. Back in college, wasn't a great, whip guy either. So I like Cade Horton. I think it's going to be with a grain of salt. I don't know if I've thrown him into my starting pitcher rankings yet. I will take a look here for you guys. I don't have him in the air, but I feel like he should be in there where I'm at. Maybe I want to say like 45, around that mark, 45, 50 for Cade Horton. Maybe even a little bit lower than that, because I could see him like as an SP5, and I'd be happy with that. Probably wouldn't push him up too much higher than that, though, because that's where that risky game comes in. And if he doesn't pan out and take a step forward, and, the wins were nice, but that's not a predictive stat. You can't really predict wins. If you're on a good team, obviously you're going to have better opportunity at them. But with pitchers, I really don't like to do that, because you could pitch a gem. Look at a la Jacob deGrom and Felix Hernandez. Some of their best seasons didn't wind up with a lot of wins when they easily could have. Even a Paul Skeens, give you the more recent reference, so that we could do Paul Skeens. So with Cade Horton, I definitely think there's upside here, but I'm not something I'm not banking on. I'm not building in to where I'm drafting Cade Horton. We'll talk about Matthew Boyd here next. Matthew Boyd, one of those veteran guys, has been aging, kind of like fine wine. I remember the hype with Matthew Boyd. I believe it was with Detroit, where all the hype was, and everyone thought he was going to be fantastic, and he just never really lived up to it. But, Boyd, the last 2 years has been pretty solid. 31 starts for Boyd this past year as a 34-year-old, first All-Star game. 3.21 ERA, 179 innings, 154 strikeouts with a 109 whip. Is it repeatable? I think somewhat. Boyd isn't somebody that I don't think we're going to have to pay way less of a price than we're going to have to pay for Horton, and I feel like he could be the dart throw, somewhere near the end of your drafts, maybe one of your last like 3 pitchers you take. I could be wrong, and maybe drafters do push him up a little bit, but I feel like at 35 years old, I don't feel like the expectations are going to be super high for a Matthew Boyd, but he could be, like I said, kind of at this point in his career, and it's weird to say, like maybe almost a stabilizer, in the sense of I think the ERA is going to be solid. I don't think the strikeouts are going to be amazing. And I think the whip could be, maybe like a 1.15 type of ordeal, which I don't think is going to be bad from a Matthew Boyd at age 35. And let's wrap things up here with the Cubs' number 1 prospect that has yet to debut. It's Jaxson Wiggins. He is a starting pitcher. He threw 18 starts across 3 levels this past season, and he had a 2.19 ERA. 78 innings pitched, 97 strikeouts, batters hit 161 against him, and he had a 103 whip over that time. Mr. Wiggins is 6'6", 225. You love to see it. He was somebody who, wasn't like a can't miss prospect coming out of college. He struggled his first 2 years with Arkansas. Missed his third after we got Tommy John surgery, so he's already been on the book for TJ. But bounced back very nicely. Built that fastball up. He sits about 96, 97, can hit over 100 when he needs to. Pairs that with a nice big slider, gets a lot of movement on that. Really makes hitters look silly with it at times. Does need to work on the control a little bit. That's going to be the thing that kind of makes or breaks the young Wiggins, but definitely somebody that we should be looking at, coming into 2026. He's 24 years old. And I kind of think, it might be the point where the Cubs need to start looking at some of their starting pitching and saying, hey, we need a little bit more up here, and Wiggins might be next up. He dominated in high A. He dominated in double A. He got 3 starts in triple A. Wasn't the best. 4.66 ERA, 9.2 innings, 14 strikeouts. The whip was a 1.15, but 3 starts is such a small sample size. I'm not going to put too much in it. If Wiggins dominates spring training and, gets the shot, definitely somebody I would throw my dart at for sure. But that's about all for today, guys. So once again, shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And after, you do that for your second listen, check out the all new Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast. So guys, until next time, see ya.